I still don't know what to make of this BYU football team. They are absolutely remarkable, but the good news is yet again, BYU, when the chips are down, they find a way, somehow, flip this narrative on its head, and they're 8-0. We're talking about all of it on a postcast edition of Locked On Cougars.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider, your host here on this podcast, and as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. All right, this is a postcast edition of the podcast talking about BYU's latest win, 41-27, the final in Ames, Iowa, and we can officially kill the post-rivalry lull narrative, can't we? As BYU finds a way to win this one. As we get started here, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a little button right down here, there's a little thumbs up. Make sure you give us as many likes as you possibly can. You can only really do one per stream, but hey, all the same, thank you for all your support. But the nice part is BYU gets the job done. Good point there by Cody James Dean. Cougs got it done. They're right. The thing about this game was it feels like in so many ways it was a tale of the first 20, 25 minutes and then the final 35 minutes. Remember, BYU went down 24-10 as the second half got towards its end. And from that time, BYU flipped the script, 31-3 a run, to use the basketball terminology there, and ends up winning 41-27. Absolutely remarkable that BYU did what they did in this game because it felt so one-sided early on in this game. That post-rivalry lull, the letdown effect, felt pretty accurate for the first, stanza of this game, first quarter and a half. But then when BYU got rolling, they just turned it around. Now, the other thing to pay attention to is BYU did it without LJ Martin. If LJ Martin is unavailable for any significant portion of time down the stretch here for BYU, that is a massive, massive loss. There's no way to cut it any other way than to say to lose him is to lose major, if not the main part of your offense. I know that Bear Bachmeier shined today, and to his credit, he absolutely balled out. 300-plus yards passing, 50 yards nearly rushing. It was 49, I think, total, if you combine the sack yardage in there for him rushing the football. But with LJ Martin out and Sione Moa still out, it feels like Bear Bachmeier's workload is about to get that much more, or that much heavier, I should say, for this BYU football program. And that's unsustainable. So praying that a guy like LJ Martin is able to get back on the field in short order. This is a very, very needed bye week for BYU, especially considering where they were at in this game. Guys like Bear Bachmeier were limping around in this one. I know that guys like Isaiah Glasgow and Jack Kelly, they have been dinged up for large portions of this season. Jay Hill said it himself. He believes that other players would not be playing football right now, not named Jack Kelly, a pretty significant shoulder injury that he has been battling through to play ball. And all of that came to fruition, it felt like, in this game early on. But then in some ways, it felt like when they got the interception from Logan Latui on Rocco Becht, and then Bear Bachmeier runs a 2-minute drill to almost perfection, goes right down the field, scores that touchdown right before halftime. It felt like in some ways BYU's like, we ain't dead yet. It's that Undertaker meme, if you've seen it on social media, where he kind of pops up out of the casket, like, we're not dead. And they came out in the second half and went down and kicked a field goal. And I was like, okay, they got points there. Let's see what they got. And then they just started kind of motoring. And BYU morphed this offense in this game. Kalani Sitake said at postgame that they didn't change the offense that much. They changed the offense. It became a pass-heavy offense because they just didn't have the horses to be able to run the football that they probably anticipated doing in this game. The other thing is Iowa State secondary, it's not good. When you lose your starting two cornerbacks and you have other defensive backs that are unavailable, it's tough to hold up at this level of football, not having your top line guys. And Iowa State secondary is a living example of that. And BYU had some really, really phenomenal abilities from guys like Chase Roberts and Parker Kingston, finding themselves open in the secondary and getting a bunch of yards after the catch. That was a big part of what BYU found a way in this game. And yeah, Satuala, speaking of Faletau Satuala, goes from the very first play of the game, getting beat on a double move for a touchdown for Iowa State, and then seals the win with a pick six. Talk about going from the low of lows to the high of highs in a game like this. So a lot of this is a microcosm, it feels like, of this BYU team this season, everybody, is that when the chips seem to be down for BYU, they find a way out of it. And they have been very, very resilient in the face of a lot of different things. Because think about it. This is the third game that BYU has trailed in Big 12 play. They've won all of them. They're undefeated. They're 8-0. They're probably going to be ranked inside the top 10 come tomorrow when the new polls come out from the AP and the coaches polls. It's incredible to watch what this BYU team is doing. And a good point here. Winners make luck happen, coming in on the chat here. I do think that's true. Winners do make luck happen, because this BYU team has been very, very good about finding ways even when things aren't working the way that they should. I'm absolutely okay. That's a good comment there. We'll get to that momentarily. But the bigger point is that this BYU team, they know how to win. And that, I've said it before on this podcast, I'll say it again. You don't go 19-2 now in your last 21 games dating back to the start of the 2024 football season without being a good football program who just simply put knows how to win. It's not been gaudy statistics. It's not been blowouts. It hasn't been BYU operating at peak efficiency for a lot of those games. But when it comes down to it, they make winning football plays. That's the hallmark of this BYU team. I'm really, really impressed that BYU has been able to go out there and just do what they've been needing to do all season long. Now, this bye week is absolutely what BYU needs right now. They need to have a week off. They need to have a chance to get guys as healthy as they possibly can be, because getting 100% healthy this time of year, unless you haven't played all year, is not going to happen. It's just absolutely something you have to be able to rest up a little bit, recompose yourselves. And let's say worst comes to worst, that LJ Martin is out for a significant period of time, if at all, any time. You're going to have to kind of reconfigure this offense and try and figure out what you're going to do with the rushing attack. Because if LJ's out, you're already down Sione Moa, and I don't know when Sione Moa is coming back. Aaron Roderick said earlier this week that he felt like JoJo Phillips would be available for the Texas Tech game, but the question mark was on Sione Moa still and his availability. He expects him to come back at some point this season. Is it for Texas Tech? You need to make sure that you find a way to generate some offense, especially in the rushing attack, that's not named Bear Bachmeier if those two running backs are out. Bear Bachmeier has got a lot on his plate. He has taken a lot of hits. Once again, he was limping in this game once again. I don't expect him to miss time because he has proven fairly resilient, if not downright durable this year. We've seen him limping in multiple games, and I always seem to get a question. Hey, did you see him limping in that game? Yeah, I did, but history tells us that LJ is going to go out there and play, and he plays ball. So I love the fact that BYU is doing what they need to do to win football games, and that it's not an easy thing at this level of football to do what the Cougars are doing. And I will also add this. I want to see the nation pay attention to what BYU is doing as well. I don't know what it's going to take for them. Maybe this win over Iowa State will have them wake up a little bit and say, hey, this BYU team's pretty good. But even though they're ranked 11th in the country, there's still a lot of people out there who are naysayers. They say that the bottom's going to fall out on this BYU team. They're not as good as they think they are. Okay, you may think that, but they're 8-0. Like, I don't know where the back and forth goes there. So I am really impressed with what BYU has been capable of doing. And apparently Main Man Slim just has an agenda today, because he's saying that Aaron Roderick is the reason why BYU they're 8-0 in spite of Aaron Roderick. Okay, Main Man Slim, I don't know what chat you wandered in on, but we're not going to slander Aaron Roderick. He reconfigured this offense on the fly in this game, this individual game, without a rushing attack, and won that football game. He scored 34 points. 34 points offensively. That's winning football. That's an offensive coordinator that knows what he's doing. Yeah, you can say that Bear is doing he's doing it in spite of Aaron Roderick. False. He's doing it with Aaron Roderick, helping him along the way. I'll just say that right now. So really impressed with what BYU's doing out there. A couple of you saying that we saw some F-bombs from BYU players. Well, we heard one from Parker Kingston. You know what? It's football. You know, if you're going to get fixated on the fact that they dropped an F-bomb on national television, I don't know what to tell you, because it happens. Guys are playing football, emotion of the moment. And to Parker's credit, he said, that's my bleeping football, because he went up and caught a pass that, man, I didn't know that Parker had those kind of hops. He's not a very tall player. So I really do think that he deserved in that moment to express his, feelings on the matter. So I'll say that. All right. So a lot of good things. And I want to continue to break those down. I also got some thoughts I need to pass along on the stats. We'll look at those. A lot of good stuff looking at what BYU did right in this game to turn it around, because I said it, the first 25-ish minutes of this game, it was all Iowa State. And we need to talk about BYU's defense. That is absolutely a concern, but once again, they give up almost 500 yards of offense and keep a team below 30 points. Those two things usually don't correlate. Usually if you have 500 yards, I think it was 495 total yards for Iowa State in this game. Typically when you have nearly 500 yards of offense, you're easily going over the 30-point mark. And for the second straight week, an opponent, last week it was Utah, this week it was Iowa State, and BYU holds them below 30 points. Pretty darn impressive. Now, the reason you do that is because you had 4 turnovers. You generated 4 turnovers, 3 interceptions, and obviously the fumble. I guess it technically be a fumble. It's a muffed punt, whatever you want to call it, on special teams. When you're +4 in the margin, you're going to be tough to beat. So we'll continue to break all that down. I also got some thoughts on some of these individual players. Devin, I didn't see that Parker said that. It happens. He was running over towards the sideline, and it's one of those like boom mics. You guys seen him on the sidelines, look like a satellite dish. Picked it up. Oh, well, it happens. And a couple people also pointed out there were some, if you read lips, some other words said, but hey, all the same, it's a fun game that BYU goes out there and once again proves that they can win football games seemingly in spite of things going against them. I really do think that this is a team that BYU, speaking of the Cougars, they know how to play ball. I love the fact that they just go out there and they don't lose faith. That's the other thing about this. They just go out there, play ball, and win. It's fun to see that. All right. Some more thoughts coming up momentarily. We'll also get to your comments as well. We'll get to more of them. Also got to get some insider group stuff as well. We'll get to all that as this postcast edition of Locked On Cougars rolls on right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Now, if you want to be in the stands when BYU plays at home next, that's TCU 3 weeks from now. Well, Game Time's got the option for you guys because college football is back. They have the tailgates, the rivalries, the energy is all over in the stands. There's nothing like it, but let's be real. Actually getting tickets to said games can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. It's all the different things combined in one. That's why I want you guys to do what I do and use Game Time. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. I've been to multiple concerts and other events using Game Time. The best part is the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay in the app. It's exactly what you're going to pay. The best part is it's faster, it's cheaper, and it's less stressful than any other way to buy tickets because, simply put, you don't have to worry about prices jumping at checkout. You're not sure what your seat view looks like because you can see it right there in the app, what your view is going to be from your seat. So it's all available from our friends over at Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying your tickets and do it with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Thank you for joining us on this postcast edition of the show. Another reminder for you guys to make sure you go down and push the like button if you're watching this on YouTube. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get it if this is your first time checking it out, because we are a daily podcast Monday through Friday, and on the weekends we do it more often than that during football season. But daily BYU content for you guys. So subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with your family and friends if you have not done so yet. All right. So looking at BYU in this win over Iowa State, The crazy thing is, we saw Bear Bachmeier go over 300 yards passing for the second time in his career. The other time he did it, if I recall correctly, was West Virginia. And 22 of 35 for 307 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's pretty good numbers. The completion percentage, a little lower than it has been this year, 63%, but still very respectable, especially considering the amount of pressure that was heaped upon him with LJ Martin out. QB rating of 155.4. Those are winning numbers. He also leads BYU in rushing, 12 carries for 49 yards. Obviously, some of the sack yardage he absorbed in that game comes out of that total. But BYU as a team manufactured 103 rushing yards without LJ. He was lost in the first quarter after going 5 for 15. And even with him in there, he was not running it all that well because that Iowa State team, they seemed absolutely intent on making sure that BYU, if they were going to lose this game, it was going to be on the passing, in the passing game with Bear Bachmeier. And Bear proved that he can chuck the rock all over the yard. I also got to give a shout out to Chase Roberts and Parker Kingston. 15 receptions among them, 128 yards for Chase Roberts, 2 touchdowns for Parker Kingston among his 7 receptions for 133 yards. Really impressed with those two because much like Bear Bachmeier, they're really kind of the two options in the passing game right now. We saw Carson Ryan take a number of big hits in this game. He had 2 receptions overall on 2 targets, 13 yards. Tiger Bachmeier, 2 receptions for 25 yards. So kind of shows the disparity in the passing game for BYU right now is that the passing game kind of relies on the 2 guys, speaking of Chase Roberts and Parker Kingston. We heard Aaron Roderick say earlier this week they hope to have JoJo Phillips back for Texas Tech. I hope he is, because that will take some of the pressure off these guys. And JoJo was a really, really nice piece to have early on the season before injuring his collarbone. So the hope is that he is back and ready for Texas Tech, because if you have 3 guys in the passing game, it makes BYU that much more dangerous to have what Parker Kingston and Chase Roberts are already offering, and then to add JoJo Phillips into that mix. That makes BYU that much better, and especially considering we don't know the timeline on LJ Martin. So those of you who are asking in the comment section saying, has it been disclosed? It is not, and quite frankly, if it's disclosed before BYU's next availability report is coming out, that'd be 10 days plus from now when BYU gets ready for Texas Tech, because during bye weeks, you're not putting out availability reports because you don't have a game. I think if we get any word on a guy like LJ Martin, I think it might be bad news. And why I mean that is probably because of the season ending. That's the only issue with regards to getting any new news on LJ before that availability report comes out the Wednesday of the Texas Tech game. If it doesn't come out, great. That means that they have hopes he's going to be available at some point, and fingers crossed he's ready for Texas Tech. That would be the best scenario. Now, when you leave a game and you undergo x-rays and then they rule you out for the game, it's not a really, really good thing to have that. But I'm hoping and praying and just kind of putting good vibes out there that LJ Martin stays healthy. So I really do think that a guy like JoJo Phillips could come back and help balance this offense if LJ Martin is unavailable. I know it's passing game versus rushing game, but without LJ Martin, man, you're going to have to manufacture the run game somehow. So are you looking at Jovessa Damuni, who we didn't see play in this game on offense? Are you looking at Preston Rex? Are you looking at Enoch Nawahine and trying to manufacture a rushing attack? That's probably what you're looking at in that respect. All right. Other things to pass along to you guys. Oh, defensively. I want to flip over to that for a minute. So the defense gives up 495 yards, but I got to give massive credit to BYU safeties. Once again, Faletau Satuwala and Tanner Wall. They were BYU's leading tacklers in this game. Satuwala had 10 total tackles, 6 of them solo, 1 tackle for loss, 1 interception, obviously that he housed for a pick 6, which was kind of the back-breaking play for BYU in this game that gets them the win. Tanner Wall in his own right, 9 total tackles, 6 of them solo. Really impressed with those 2 guys. The concern is, though, for the second straight week, BYU's safeties were their leading tacklers. That's the concern you have to monitor here, because once again, if you take the sack yardage out of the rushing attack for Iowa State, I know that they officially ended with like 184 rushing yards, but if you take that sack yardage out of that, they ran for north of 200 yards on BYU. And that is the second straight week that BYU's defense has given up more than 200 yards, because Utah also went for more than 200. That's unsustainable. Teams like Texas Tech will be licking their chops at the prospect of being able to run it down your throat. I know that Tech has been kind of built on an air raid system, throwing the ball all over the field, but if they can run the football, they will absolutely go out there and run it down your throat. And BYU's got to have better defensive line play. they were so good against Utah. And then against Iowa State, they struggled again. So we need to see the defensive line step up and hopefully figure some things out in this bye week. Linebackers, I'm telling you, they're battling because Cialia Serra was lost in this game, and losing him obviously hurt BYU because he's really, really good against the run. But having less than 100% Jack Kelly, less than 100% Isaiah Glasker, that hurt BYU in the run game as well. So this bye week is critical to get those guys as close to full health as you possibly can. I really do think it's a game that you look at and say that it's a good time to have this bye week for the Cougars because they need to get some of these guys healthy. The other thing defensively I was impressed by was the sacks. Man, we saw defensive ends get sacks, guys. Bodie Schoonover, Viliami Puha. That was good to see them come off the edge, win pass rush reps, and get pressure on Rocco Becht. That's why BYU got 3 interceptions in addition to the 4 sacks they got, which, by the way, 4 sacks, a season high for BYU in a single game. So good to see that. But the pressure, it was nice to see that. It was nice to see the defensive line generating pressure because for large stretches of the season, it's been pressure coming from the linebacking core, Jack Kelly coming off the edge, etc. It was good to see guys like Puha and Schoonover finally win these reps and win in one-on-one battles and get those sacks. And the one for Bodie Schoonover, the final one, what a critical play that was. Because remember, the play before that, Iowa State had punched it into the end zone, got called back due to holding. And what does he do? He sacks Rocco Becht for, I don't know, it was a 15-yard loss, pushes them back to 2nd and goal at the 32-yard line. That was a big play. Like in a game that came down to individual plays, that one needs to be pointed out. I also got to give a shout out to Logan Latui. Very active. And that interception in some ways, I think, calmed BYU down in so many ways when Rocco Becht inexplicably threw it right to him, it felt like. So I really do think that it's a really, really nice thing to see that a guy like Logan Latui, who came back when he didn't have to, he's been showing out for the Cougars. And that's a positive thing to see BYU getting contributions from across the roster defensively. I've talked often on this podcast about the lack of pressure from BYU's defensive ends. We've been hoping they were going to show up, and this game they did. Can they replicate that against Texas Tech? Time will tell. But it was good to see it break out, and that should give them some confidence. Guys like Viliami Puha and Bodie Schoonover and Logan Latui. Tausili Khan also had a big pressure late in this game. Nusi Taumwe Apeo has been seeing more and more action as the season goes along. They should be gaining confidence here based on how they've gone out there and played the way that they played in this game. So I really did like the fact that the defense, we got contributions from a lot of guys going out there and playing their rear ends off. I really did like them playing good ball. So I'm interested to see where they go from here because the defense, it needs to find a way to stop the run much more effectively than it has the last 2 games. They've gotten away with it. They have found ways to win football games with those weaknesses. But I think Jay Hill's still worth every dime that BYU's paying him. I'm sure that this bye week, given adequate time to heal guys up, also adequate time to evaluate Texas Tech film, I think Jay Hill will have something cooked up for the Red Raiders, and I'm looking forward to that. I really do think it was fun to see that. And, yeah, good point. Beck threw it right to Latui. The funny thing is the wide receiver on that play or the running back, whatever it was, kind of looked at Beck after the play and said, I'm supposed to go up the field. And he said, no, you're supposed to settle down right into that hole. He didn't see Latui. So that was a nice coverage interception there to see that. So I really do think that it's a fun thing to see BYU playing the ball the way that they are. So it'll be a good game. Speaking of Texas Tech upcoming, it's not going to be an easy one. Texas Tech, even though they lost to Arizona State, they went out and absolutely pummeled Oklahoma State. Now, most people who play Oklahoma State this time of year are going to do that because they fired Mike Gundy. Feels like the bottom has fallen out for the Cowboys, but they shut out Oklahoma State 42-0 without Baron Morton, speaking of Texas Tech. So it's going to be a tough game. Is Texas Tech's offensive line better or worse than Utah's? Well, I would say it's right on par with that. That's the thing about this. And I think that it's a really good offensive line, but BYU held their own against that Utah offensive line. Now, Utah fans will tell you that they completely changed the game plan. Okay, great. You can make all the excuses you want. Your offensive line got dominated by BYU's defensive line. And I want to see the defensive line output we saw against Utah against Texas Tech. Because if they do that, that'll go a long way to helping win that game. Going to be top 10 by Texas Tech week. Absolutely. If BYU's not top 10 by tomorrow, something's gone wrong. I'd be really surprised if they're not, because BYU has proven themselves to be an elite team. They're still one of the few remaining undefeated teams this season. It's really impressive to see what they've done. So really good stuff. All right, final stanza coming up next. We're going to talk about what you guys want to talk about, your comments. You guys are having some fun in the comments section over here on YouTube. There's a bunch of going back and forth with different fans out there with regards to some supposed trolls. So we'll get to that. Also got to get some comments from our Locked On Cougars Insider group, and one in particular that I'm really impressed by because they noticed this in the game, and we'll get to that next as we continue to roll on this postcast edition of Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Now, FanDuel is here. The NBA is back, and there's a better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss out on the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks for you guys. Plus, you even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game more exciting, especially when your team is making that late push in a game. Helps you have a lot more fun. The best part is FanDuel is giving $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. You put $5 down. If it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets, courtesy of our friends over at FanDuel. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. All right, let's talk about what you guys want to talk about. Comment section going absolutely nuts out there. If you want to join the insider group, Ladlish, send me a note. I'll get you squared away. There is a link on our insider group. We can get you squared away on that. It's a fun way to get insider updates that I'm sending out to our Locked On Cougars insider group members. So just send me a note via email, lockedonbyu@gmail.com, or reach out via social media, and we'll get you squared away. All right, good point here from Clint on our insider group. I've heard many people say we don't want to force Bear to have to win games. Well, that was exactly the case today, and this continues to impress arguably a more impactful player than any other Big 12 quarterback. It's a good point by Clint there, because BYU needs everything that Bear Bachmeier has given them right now to win these football games. They don't win without him doing what he's doing. So I'm really impressed with what Bear has shown, because remember, he showed up at BYU in June. He learned the offense via some long Zoom sessions with guys like Aaron Roderick and Matt Mitchell, the quarterback's coach at BYU. Then he goes out and wins the quarterback job in 3 weeks' time in training camp, and all he's done is win. He's 8-0 as a starter. That's really, really impressive stuff from him. So really cool to see him doing what he's doing for this BYU football program. And I really do think that we're seeing a young man that could become an outright legend by the end of like his first season in Provo. That's the crazy thing to consider. He's led BYU to an 8-0 record. They've never started 8-0 in back-to-back years ever in program history. Not even the Lavelle era did they do what BYU's done so far. Damien with a good point here. Rubel said on the postgame show that BYU is now 12-0 in the last 12 games when scoring 30+. That's a benchmark. You go 30+ points on offense, you're going to be a pretty darn good football program. And they have proven to be very effective out there. Ben, I'm very proud of the fellas. They did not panic. They outscored ISU 24-3 in the second half. I mentioned it. They were down 24-10 towards the end of the first half, and then reeled off a 31-3 run to finish this game. Really, really impressive stuff. It says the DBs in the defensive backfield stepped up. I was also quite impressed with the D line. He also says, heck, whatever. The second half was impressive for the most part. So critiques I have is the outside containment. Also, gaps are not getting plugged up during some important plays, but they did step up. And then Bear, what can you say? You can't call him a true freshman anymore. No, he's no longer a true freshman. He's just Bear Bachmeier. Your point about containment, absolutely valid. Carson Hansen gashed BYU time and time again, and the inability to set an edge on the perimeter, but also getting gashed up the middle. Credit goes to Iowa State's offensive line. They had a great game plan, and they executed for a long stretch of this game. But BYU is going to have to be much better against the run. I said it before. You cannot give up 200 rushing yards routinely and continue to expect to win football games. BYU's gotten away with it in back-to-back games. It's got to stop. You got to be so much better against the run. Let's see other comments coming here. Okay, Braille's empty. Is Bear the second coming of Steve Young? Well, he's not left-handed, but there's an argument to be made there. Now, Steve Young will tell you, I think if you asked him, that Bear is light years ahead of where Steve was when he showed up at BYU, because the story goes that Steve was like 8th on the depth chart at quarterback for BYU, and they wanted to move him to safety. And then he goes over and asks Jim McMahon essentially, okay, how do you throw the football? And he learned how to throw the football. And his rushing ability, I get the combination, but I think the bigger comparison, or the more apt comparison for me, and it's been made nationally, is Bear Bachmeier right-handed Tim Tebow, but with a better throwing arm. I think that argument's more valid because Tim Tebow, he wasn't a burner, but he's super effective in the run game. He was not necessarily the passer that Bear Bachmeier is, but I think that's probably the more apt comparison. But hey, the Grizzly Bear, as PK on the KSL Sports Zone that I work at every single day likes to say, the Grizzly Bear, kid can ball. There's absolutely fun to see that out there. A good point here by Wyatt Phelps. I wish RG3 was on the mic every game. I'm telling you, Robert Griffin III, he's a really, really impressive commentator for Fox Sports. I've been really impressed with his analysis in games. And the best part is he doesn't take himself too seriously. He just goes out there and he's like, hey, that was a fun play. And he'll break it down for you guys. There were a couple of the route combinations that Aaron Roderick drew up for BYU's wide receivers that you could tell Robert Griffin III was geeking out over. He's like, man, look at this. Look, and I love the fact that RG3 loves the game of football. That's cool to see that. So I really do think it was okay. Mayman Slim, good point here. Throwing away on the fumble and then throwing away on that play was big. You're right. Remember that fumble that Bear got it stripped out and he didn't lose his head. That was reminiscent. Remember against East Carolina when he had a strip sack as well, that he picks up the ball. Remember he tried to gun it down the field and he got picked off by the safety. There was a moment in that game that I'm sure Bear, when he fumbled that ball, he's looking down the field, didn't see anybody open and thought better of it and said, you know what? I'm not going to force this. I learned my lesson against East Carolina, and he threw it out of bounds. That's growing up right before our eyes. And that was an impressive play. So Mayman Slim, even though you wanted to slander Aaron Roderick, I'll give you credit on that one. That's a good take by you when it comes to Bear, because that was a really good play because it showed the growth that Bear has made as a player. So I'm really impressed by that. Is Bear a legit Heisman candidate at this point? I don't think so, because I don't think the stats will bear that out. He may be a dark horse, I guess you'd probably call it. He's only got, let's see, we're now at just a shade under 1,700 yards passing. He's got 11 touchdowns against 3 interceptions, 408 rushing yards, 9 rushing touchdowns, 20 total TDs. Those aren't the numbers that are going to have Heisman voters salivating. Yeah, I know that winning football games is a big part of why guys win the game, but I do think that the numbers, they're not going to make him a Heisman candidate at this point. Now, if they go 12-0, could be an argument there, but there's still a lot of big games coming up. Texas Tech, TCU, Cincinnati. We're halfway through a gauntlet here, guys, and BYU is 3-0 against it. So mass credit to BYU on being able to find their way through this. Okay, good question. This is my final one, I think, here before we go. Jake, let's hear predictions about Arlington. Who ends up in the 1 or 2 loss category at the end? Well, I can't count BYU out of that because, as I said, there's still weaknesses in BYU's game. But there feels like BYU has a mulligan. It's probably the term to use. It's a golf term. They can lose a game and still find themselves easily in Arlington at this point because they have a game essentially in hand on everybody not named Cincinnati. Cincinnati's playing great ball right now. And I think it's kind of those two are probably the odds-on favorite. But I can't count out Texas Tech either, because Texas Tech, even though they lost Arizona State, they have got a lot of firepower. And if they beat BYU, guess what? They're right back in this race, if not leading the race outside of Cincinnati. And we'll see what Cincinnati does over the last little bit. So I do think that it's a game that we look at in terms of, could Texas Tech determine who's playing in Arlington? That's what it comes down to, it feels like, in some ways. BYU loses that game. They're not out of the race, but they are essentially 2 games back at Texas Tech with 3 games to go in the season. So I'm telling you, that Texas Tech game, it's absolutely massive here for BYU. So, all right, that's going to do it. Is BYU going to be an underdog at Texas Tech again? I will say yes. Yes, they will be. Even though they're ranked inside the top 10. I just count on it. I absolutely count on it. All right, that's going to do it. I'm going to sign off now. I've actually got to get up to Salt Lake City. I've got to work on the radio side for Utah and Colorado. So we'll see how that shakes out. But as always, thank you to all of you for tuning in. I think we topped out at like 500 plus individuals watching this concurrently live on YouTube. And I'm sure a lot of you will be checking it out in the podcast format. So as always, truthfully, thank you for all of your support of the podcast. It means the world to me that you guys enjoy it as much as you do. Give Bear the Heisman. Sorry, Alex. I don't think we can give Bear the Heisman. We can't do that quite yet. Are we watching one of the best seasons by a modern day BYU quarterback? Yeah, I think it would be valid to consider that. So as always, thank you for your support. We'll be back with my film review Monday coming up next week. It's a bye week. We'll have a lot of football content. But we're also going to kind of lean into basketball as well. If you guys did not watch the North Carolina scrimmage, we'll have plenty of that. And I have a good friend, Tim Lacombe, former BYU assistant basketball coach. He and I have become really, really close. He is going to join me to talk about this BYU basketball team and give you his expert insight on what to expect from AJ DeBonsa, and the BYU basketball program. So as always, thank you for all your support of the show. We'll catch you guys on the flip side. But once again, BYU winning 41-27. They're 8-0, and life is good in Cougar country. This has been the Locked On Cougars podcast.